Hello and welcome to Writing Stuff 101. This will be a guide about writing techniques and tools that can help you with your own writing. This is not a place to have discussions about spelling or grammar. The focus of these videos is aimed at the content of writing and tips for improvement. Analysis of currently existing media is also incorporated. Spoiler alerts will be listed in the video's description as well as at the start of each episode. You have been warned. Let's face it, there's a lot of crime dramas out there, particularly ones that focus on murder. A common type of show we see is one where a reoccurring cast has a job of figuring out who committed the murder or crime in general. In an attempt to reboot the sale of murder and mystery, some shows have taken the opposite approach. Some shows, like Dexter, have the murderer be the protagonist, while other shows incorporate violence and murder in it without it being the center of attention. A red herring is a person or sometimes thing that intentionally misleads the viewer. Detective Shucks enters a crime scene in the living room of 618 Gopher Road. He sees Brian, a young man, lying dead on the floor. The coroner says that a blow to the head killed Brian. Next to the body is a baseball bat. It has no fingerprints. Later, after interviewing several people, the detective realizes that the baseball bat couldn't have burned the murder weapon because there wasn't any damage to the bat, even though it was covered in blood. Further examination of the crime scene leads Detective Shucks to conclude that a shovel was used to kill Brian. He finds the shovel in Brian's former girlfriend's house. She didn't want to get caught and knew that her fingerprints were on the shovel, so she covered the baseball bat in blood and ran away. This is a shortened outline of a mystery story. Detective Shucks fell for the quote-unquote red herring, thinking that the baseball bat had killed Brian when really it was a shovel. The use of a red herring usually makes the story longer. If Detective Shucks had known right away that the shovel had been the murder weapon, it would have led him to go looking for the shovel instead of wasting his time with the baseball bat. Detective Shucks enters the crime scene in the living room of 618 Gopher Road. He sees Brian, a young man, lying dead on the floor. The coroner says that a blow to the head killed Brian. Next to the body is a baseball bat. It has no fingerprints. Detective Shucks talks to Brian's best friend, Steve, and learns that Brian was cheating on his girlfriend, Lena. Brian was cheating on Lena with Gina. Gina is suspected of being a killer. Then, Detective Shucks realizes that the baseball bat didn't kill Brian, but a shovel did, and this leads him back to Lena, Brian's girlfriend. The idea is pretty straightforward. Using a misdirect, you can keep the characters confused and the audience entertained. The technique of misdirecting the audience isn't new, and in fact, you've probably seen it in a movie where a protagonist turns out to be an antagonist in disguise. Tina is a young girl who has a hard time making friends. One day, a new girl named Tammy shows up to her school and they hang out. Tammy persuades Tina to act rebellious. At first, this isn't such a bad thing, but it escalates to shoplifting and sneaking out of the house. Misdirecting an audience can also be a means by which you challenge traditional views. If you want to show a controversial point of view, you can put a protagonist in a position where they make an unsavory choice. Whatever the point being made is, the audience will almost automatically adjust their perspectives to those of the protagonist. George is charged with the task of taking care of a mentally handicapped individual named Lenny. George isn't very good at what he does, and Lenny keeps getting into trouble. One day, Lenny accidentally hurts somebody so badly that he incites a mob. Even though George knows that what happened with Lenny was probably an accident, he also knows that the situation is unstoppable. As the mob approaches, George finds himself alone with Lenny. George has a gun and knows that if he kills Lenny, he won't suffer in prison. But he also knows that he would be killing somebody he never wants to see in pain. Should George kill Lenny? This question is controversial to say the least, but what makes it interesting is that the audience may have had different views on the answer before they had read the story as compared to when they were reading or after they had read the story. That's all for Writing Stuff 101 for today. Please subscribe for more videos if you like pushing buttons or if you like seeing more of these videos.